Hello, you're watching rptv News, and my name is Dimitri Martinovich. On today's show, we will be speaking with David Saad, a Moss Park resident who recently took the controversial step of organizing a GoFundMe campaign to raise money to hire a private security force to patrol the residential neighborhood that he lives in. Join me now as David explains how and why he and his neighbors felt compelled to take matters into their own hands.
Welcome, David, to rptv, and I'm very happy to meet you and to speak to you today about this very interesting thing that you've been doing, about raising a certain amount of money to hire a private security force to patrol your neighborhood. But before we get to all of that, I wonder if you could take a bit of time to give us a bit of history about yourself, to tell us who you are and what you do and so
on. Name's David Saad, been in Toronto almost my entire life. It's interesting because when I say I love this city, I mean, I really love this city, and a lot of what was happening, actually I love this neighborhood too. And so when I saw things, not looking great, that's, I'm kind of the kind of person who wanted to do something and wanted to, somehow help make a change of some sort and help with some of the violence and overdoses and break-ins that have been happening here in Moss Park, Cabbagetown South.
Okay, so so maybe you could speak to this a little bit more. Like, how is it that you became the spokesperson and organizer of this GoFundMe campaign to raise money to hire a private security force to patrol the streets of your neighborhood? Can you tell our audience why you and your neighbors would take such an action?
Since COVID started, the city, province, basically all services were cut. And that happened at the same time that a lot of people were let out of jail and Cam 8. And we saw, a fairly sharp uptick in crime locally. And this is at a time when the number of reported crimes in for most police divisions is actually down. And part of the reason for that is that less arrests are being made because police know that, most things can't be prosecuted right now. So here we're actually seeing an uptick in crime. We were going to the police were saying, oh, we can't do anything. There's, if we can't, we don't have the people, we can't arrest people. There's no ability to, there's no support from the Crown attorneys to prosecute anybody. So, we went to the counselor, and, I understand actually where she's coming from, that, she can only do so much. And, the answer's been kind of the same, that we have these crisis response teams that were supposed to be here, I believe, in the summer of 2019. We're still waiting on them. So after months and months and, several meetings with the counselor and the head of 51 division, we kind of said, well, what else is there, right? We have our neighborhood watch, but our neighborhood watch isn't out, from 10 p.m. Like, regular neighbors aren't going to be out and about doing a neighborhood watch, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So, we decided to, hire on somebody as essentially an extension of our neighborhood watch, another set of eyes and ears to watch the neighborhood when we couldn't.
So, for people who might not know the different areas of Toronto, can you tell us, describe the sort of the geography, the streets that border and define the area of Moss Park that you live in?
So we're not patrolling all of Moss Park. We are patrolling. We have a security guard patrolling one block, and that is between Sherbourne and Parliament, not including Sherbourne and Parliament, between Dundas and Shooter inclusive. So it is Dundas and Shooter are being patrolled. However, Sherbourne and Parliament are not.
So, David, how many residents of that area do you think you speak for when you mounted this campaign?
Well, I mean, there's about 400 homes in the area, and we're up to 40 donors, 41 donors, including offline donations. So, I mean, asking people to, I mean, anybody who's raised money for any political, anything, can say that, 10% of people opening up their wallets, and I mean, some people to the tune of $1,000, 10% of people actually opening up their wallets and contributing a pretty, it's a pretty good amount of support within the, within the community. Most people, I've gotten a lot of emails and phone calls, and I see people on the streets. I mean, everybody says, yeah, it's great, it's amazing, it's working. So yeah, I think there's actually a lot of support for it within the neighborhood. Most of the people who, have an issue with it actually don't live in the block. Right. And I mean, it's kind of one of those things that if you don't live here, you don't really know what's going on. I mean, just as, as an example, we've been able to get drug dealers to move along. And it's not that we're not going to solve the fentanyl crisis. But I know that speaking to one of the outreach groups, I was talking to, somebody from one of the respite centers here, one of the drop-in centers here at Sherbourne and Dundas. And, I guess that the outreach workers that had gone to, drug dealers that were at, on Shooter before, there was, okay, guys, you can't be dealing drugs here. And I guess that the normal answer they were getting was, oh, well, the police drive by me like 20 times a day and they don't say anything. So what's your problem with, with me selling drugs here? Our enforcement officer or our security officer doesn't have to actually touch anybody. All he'll do is, stop the car, park it, and leave his, flashing light on. And, that's bad for business. And at the end of the day, drug dealers are business people. So they go elsewhere where they can conduct their business, which isn't here. Right. And that's just one of the examples of, actually being able to make a positive change for the people who live in the area.
So it's a complex issue. And of course, there have been numerous people who do not agree with what you're doing. What do you say to those critics of your
it's ideologically, I don't even personally like the idea of private security. And, this is Canada, this is Toronto, right? We shouldn't have to do this. So I actually, I struggled a lot with this and whether I was even going to do this. And what I kind of came to was that if I was going to let my, ideology shape a decision which should be looked at in a, kind of more logical manner, and a, more proactive manner where, I could do something, to not do it for ideological reasons would actually be, nothing but pride and wouldn't actually be helping anybody. So I know that a lot of people don't like the idea of it. Like I said, I don't know that I've had anybody who lives within this area, within the neighborhood that I just, talked about. I've had one person tell me that they, that is actually within the area that they, that they're objecting to it. But yeah, it's one of those things that, like I said, it's if you're gonna, I wasn't gonna let my pride get in the way of doing something that I thought could be the most helpful to my community.
So a little bit earlier, you were talking about that you've had ongoing discussions with the city. I wonder if you could explain a little bit more about your relationship with the city and whether or not the support that they have given you has been enough, and how have you managed that?
Most of the support from the city, and I mean, there's been, like, don't get me wrong, there's the city and Kristen Wong-Tam, and this is Kristen Wong-Tam, I won't even say the city. Kristen Wong-Tam and her staff went to bat for us to go to the police and get more community officers in our area. Unfortunately, it still hasn't been enough. And I mean, for what we're talking about, I mean, the amount of money we're talking about, it's actually not a terribly large amount of money, on a yearly basis when you're going to talk about city services. And we've actually done more to, combat this than, probably, 20, 30, 50 times the amount of money spent by the city and the police on the same problems.
So somewhere I was reading, as I was doing research on this subject, that I read that there are already 8 community officers patrolling the Cabbagetown area.
It's not only Cabbagetown, but yeah, there's 8 community officers, part of their, and Cabbagetown is part of their, beat. But they're not only in Cabbagetown. It's not 8. It's not like Cabbagetown has its own 8 officers that are, patrolling these 2 blocks, right? They do have to cover a fairly large area. And one of the problems is they're regularly pulled away to attend calls, which means they're not getting to do their community police work.
So I know that you have, in different interviews, spoken about what it is like to wake up, come out into the street where you live and discover lots of drug paraphernalia. I wonder if you could touch on that a little bit again for our audience who may not know about the particular situation that you're in.
So, yeah, it's, I mean, my kids are 14 and 16. So, yeah, my kids are 14 and 16, and, so they're not playing in the snow or playing in the, playing the leaves, but it's, before COVID, probably, once every couple of weeks, I'd find a needle in my front yard. Meh, okay, I can live with it. Right? Live in Toronto, live and let live. Like, we can deal with a little bit of it. It went to, I mean, and we have, I don't even know how many pictures. There's one day where there was over 60 needles on Berkeley Street and Milan Street alone. Now, understand the city's coming along and picking them up intermittently. So this would have been 60 needles, over 60 needles that would have collected within 1 or 2 or 3 days. So yeah, I mean, it went from, you know, okay, well, hey, you know, it's Toronto, live and let live, to, you know, people could no longer enjoy their homes, and you know, people were coming out and finding, you know, 3 used condoms on the sidewalk in front of their house, and then, you know, 4 needles and a broken crack pipe. And like, there just comes a point where it's way too much. And that's why, I mean, when it's that bad, that's why I have support. I mean, 10% of people opening their wallets, you know, like I said, I don't think there's any political, I'd be very surprised if any political party had, you know, 10%, had 40, if any single political party had 40 donors from within this same block. Right? It's really difficult to get people to open their wallets. You know, people will talk and they'll share and they'll like and they'll sign online petitions and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, you know, getting 10% of the population to open their wallets for it, you know, for the idea of private security. We haven't even gone back to people for a second round, but I'm sure we're going to have a lot more donations coming because we have been successful.
So, thank you for that, David. I wonder, how would you characterize the particular situation that you find yourself in? On the one hand, as you've said, you feel compelled to ensure the safety of the residents in your neighborhood, the safety from break-ins, assaults, and intrusions of homeless people. While on the other hand, you know that these very same people that threaten the well-being of your neighbors are actually victims themselves of societal shortcomings, poverty, complex health and mental health issues, as well as substance abuse issues. How do you negotiate those divergent tensions?
So I'm really glad you asked. So one of the things is you know, these things need to be pulled apart a little bit before you can get into it too much. You know, the people who are leaving needles in the front, you know, in your front garden are not the people who are breaking into homes. Right? Break and enter is a skill. Like, you learn how to do that. That is a learned skill. Homeless people, right? Like over at Margaret's, over at the corner of Sherburne and Dundas, those people are not planning and executing break-ins. All right. So you got to pull it apart a little bit. You know, as far as break-ins go, as far as drug dealers go, as far as human traffickers go, you know, being broke, being poor is just not an excuse to get into human trafficking. You know, the vast, you know, 99% of people who are broke don't turn to crime. Right. So I take a bit of issue with the idea that poor people are criminals, because that's just not, you know, that's not true in my experience. You know, as far as, you know, whatever brought people to, you know, learning break and enter as their trade, whatever brought people to, you know, I feel for people. I know everybody's got a story, but, you know, whatever was that brought you to becoming a human trafficker, it's still not okay. You know, I know everybody's got their trauma, everybody's got issues, but being a human trafficker, there's simply no excuse. So I don't really, you know, and like I said, I I take a bit of exception to the idea that poor people are criminals because they're poor. They're not. You know, the homeless people who are, you know, in and around the neighborhood, you know, aren't the problem, and we're not the problem. You know, I mean, it's gotten so bad that, you know, one of the local guys that collects bottles and cans to bring to the LCBO up the street, you know, I saw him and he had, you know, left side of his face was, you know, all bruised and swelled up. And I said, Joe, what's going on? How you doing? And he said, oh, somebody, you know, 2 nights ago hit me to, you know, and robbed me for my cans and bottles. So they robbed me for my cart, robbed him for his cart of cans and bottles. So when the neighborhood is so bad and there's so much violence and so many, you know, true criminals on the street that people can't safely, you know, go and collect bottles and cans to, you know, bring up to the LCBO, like it's beyond, that is beyond, you know, anything anybody can call reasonable.
So, if I was to ask you, what do you think are the solutions to the situation that you are in now, both for yourself and your neighbors and for the vulnerable and marginalized people with whom you have to coexist in these difficult times?
So, I mean, it's a tough one because, you know, you have to kind of pull it apart a bit and, you know, get into, you know, different aspects of it and say, okay, well, there's a problem of break and enters, and there's the problem of human traffickers, and then there's the problem of, you know, needles and safe supply and lack of housing. You know, again, break and enter is a skill. You know, that's a policing issue. Human trafficking is a policing issue. I mean, there's definitely a lot of social services that are lacking, that are leading people there. You know, I'd love to see more services to help the victims of human trafficking. As for, you know, homelessness and addiction, you know, if I could wave a magic wand, I would say, all right, we have a housing first policy. You know, there are enough spaces today to put everybody in dignified housing where they don't have, you know, wellness checks, where they're having their rooms ransacked. And, you know, I don't know if you know about this, but one of the hotel staffs just fired the entire security team because, you know, apparently they were taking people's drugs from, you know, out in front of the hotel. I think it was Dixon Hall, the bond, but I'm not 100%. So don't quote me on that. But they, you know, the security was taking their drugs. So how can a shelter be like the shelter is against the people? So, you know, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever have that kind of situation. So yeah, I mean, I'd have housing first. You know, I'd have safe supply, right? I'd love to see, you know, safe supply. And if you provide safe supply, users will go to the safe supply. You can provide a safe supply and housing, you know, and wet housing, dignified wet housing to people in the same place, and people will go there. So you can put it, you know, beside the airport in an abandoned warehouse, you know, in a warehouse area where wet users, you know, can go and do their thing. And, you know, people who are in treatment and everybody else can be within the community, because having the wet services, you know, having wet services right beside a treatment center makes it really tough. And then having a treatment center trying to treat people who don't have a home is just ridiculous. How can anybody get treatment with them? They don't have a place to live. How can anybody get a job? Oh, get a job. You don't have a place to live. Nobody can get a place to live. No, you know, nobody can get a job when they don't have a place to live. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it'd be housing first, safe supply, universal basic income, you know, and that the UBI might actually be a thing that would help with some of the, you know, some of the human trafficking, and, you know, possibly with some of the, you know, the drug dealing. But, you know, as far as the drug dealing goes, you give people safe supply, you take away people's customers, you destroy their business very quickly. It's like, it's not even all that complicated. And, you know, all of these drugs are incredibly cheap. I mean, the government have them for pennies a dose. So, yeah, I mean, that would be my, you know, that'd be my answer. And if we can take care of the marginalized people, right, in a proper fashion, not in a, you know, everything's piecemeal now, and you have, I mean, we have 3 needle exchanges and, or sorry, 3 safe injection sites, and none of them is open after 8 p.m. Like, why don't we have one that's open 24 hours? It would, like, I don't, and it's one of these things that they're like, and as I understand it, that, you know, there are 3 safe injection sites operated by, you know, 3 different, you know, organizations that are all getting funding. And it just, I don't even know. I mean, right, I feel like, you know, we're half-assing the attempt to help people. You know, we're paying lip service to the idea of helping people, and very little is actually getting done.
So how would you sum up your, how would you say, like your vision, or what your idea of what the private security force would be able to do in your neighborhood?
Well, the long-term goal is that we're not going to need a private security, right? I mean, that's the goal, and that's the hope. Like I said, you know, the security, I think there's been a lot of, you know, there's been a lot of misunderstanding about what it is that they do. I think people, you know, read a headline and immediately jump to whatever conclusion they think that, you know, it's going to be. You know, I mean, the number of people that I've heard say, "Oh, you're unleashing vigilante," and you know, and I'm laughing because they, you know, that's a reaction to a headline. I mean, you know, anybody who would actually, you know, read the whole GoFundMe campaign would know that we're not looking at, you know, we're not looking to hire vigilantes. Like I was saying earlier on, they don't actually touch anybody, right? The security guards do not physically touch anybody. I mean, the instructions that they are given every day that I made this very clear is, you know, we're out there to, you know, deter. We're out there to disrupt. You know, like I said, in the case of, you know, drug dealers, we can't, you know, not touching anybody, but it's disrupting their business. And we're there to help. And, you know, anybody who's in need, they're there, they have first aid, they have naloxone, they know CPR. So, you know, like I said, really what the guard is an extension of the Neighborhood Watch, which is going to be, which is available from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. depends on the night. And this is to help us know that we've just got a extra set of eyes on the streets, taking a look, somebody that can call the police when everybody else is sleeping.
Well, great. Thank you very much, David. You certainly put a much more human dimension to the situation that you are in. And I'm just wondering, is there anything else that you feel that you'd like to say that we haven't covered so far?
Really, the number one thing is, please, if you have concerns, to anybody who has concerns, please go read the GoFundMe campaign. If you still have concerns, I'd very much like people to, reach out to me, either by email or by telephone. I'm willing to make myself available. I definitely want to, talk through the issues. I want to hear other people's points of view, and I want to hear other people's ideas too. Like I said, there's been very little resistance to the idea within the area, that I've been able to find out about, and I was asking a couple of people at Margaret's who work there, if they've heard anybody complaining about the security, because I want to know. I want to know that the instructions are being followed, because to me, that security guard who's out there is representing me, David Saad, and the intent of this and the intent of this action is it comes from a place of kindness and care, and so really I very much want anybody to reach out to me. You can check out the GoFundMe campaign. It's gofundme.com/F/SOSTO. And you can reach out, or you could reach out to me. It's saveourstreetsto@gmail.com. Thank you so much, Dimitri.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for breaking out the very nuanced complexities of this situation. So,
we only started to pull it apart, right?
Yeah.
But there's so much to it. So thank you so much, Dimitri. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Please do not forget to like, comment, and share to our channel. Follow us on all our social media platforms. And for more information, please check out our website.